right, I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Village of Campton Hills. It's September 3rd, 2024, 7:03 p.m. Roll call, please.
Trustee Boatner?
Here.
Trustee Burson?
Here.
Trustee McElvey?
Here.
Trustee Millet is absent. Trustee Muncy?
Present.
Trustee Williams?
Here.
President Wonicky?
Present. Please rise for the pledge. Trustee Williams, will you lead us in the pledge? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Okay, we're moving on to public comment. Tracy?
Bill Stone?
So last time I was here, I was talking about the Kane County Tax Authority not recognizing the Village of Campton Hills. I had discussions in which to thank Mr. Boatner and Mr. Williams for their interest in this. While that matter has yet to be resolved, I would first like to address the fact that as you all got a letter from the Board of Elections indicating that you could vote permanently via mail, you may have indicated, if you live in our town, that that was addressed to St. Charles, Illinois. Upon further investigation, I found out that GIS does not recognize the Village of Campton Hills. It wants a letter from the village, and I said, is that specifically for me or for all residents? They said that depends on what the village letter says. And so I'm bringing this to the board's attention that GIS does this. The Board of Elections gentleman, I talked to the head of that, I can't remember his name, and I left my notes at home. He basically said that there's no way this is going to get changed for this go around in the elections, but really what difference does it make? You still get your mail. So I say to you, our board members, what difference does it really make to anyone that Village of Campton Hills, after 17 years, is not recognized by GIS, is not recognized by the Board of Elections, and is still not recognized within the taxing authority that we get our taxes from? Only if you fill out a special form, which I have, they'll change it, but not across all residents. Why? Does it make any sense to anybody? The only thing I got back from Mr. Boatner is, well, there was a court case in Will County where they were sued because they changed the name of the town, okay? If it's an unincorporated town and a name was changed to another incorporated town, I could see that there would be a reason for an objection. If you live in an incorporated city, there should be no reason why the Kane County Taxing Authority should not address the fact that our taxes are not being mailed to Campton Hills, Illinois. Mr. Boatner, if you can get me a court case, I'd be happy to look at it and go through it. And if I have to hire a lawyer, I'll hire a lawyer to go through it. I believe they're not comparing apples to apples. I've looked for court cases, cannot find any that specifically are regarding addresses. I don't know why Kane County does not want to do this, but it needs to be addressed, both at GIS and both at Kane County. I know the president was informed of this a number of years ago, and you were given some explanation 3.5 years ago as to why this couldn't happen. I know that the president here, the past president, was informed of it and still nothing happened. So I don't know the reason, but there seems to be some reason at Kane County that they don't want to do this. I don't understand it, and I don't understand why GIS has not changed the records, because when the village was incorporated back in '07, Patty Smith signed an amendment to the board or to our bylaws that said we would share information with GIS. I thought that went both ways. I do not have a copy of this. I will get you a copy of that because I found it on the Kane County records. So I don't know why GIS hasn't done their job. I think it is their job to maintain accuracy. But again, they are looking for a letter from the village stating, as far as I'm concerned, all the addresses that we want changed to correctly reflect that those people live in Campton Hills and not elsewhere. And the reason the county clerk, or I'm sorry, the Board of Elections person, they use GIS records for their mailings. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Bill.
No others.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Excuse me, for public comments for some of the action items, does that take place now or during the action item?
If you want to speak, I would speak now. Yeah, come on up. And you have to state your name, please.
Good evening, I'm a little bit late. My son had a cross-country meet, and we just finished that up. My name is Matthew Leffler, L-E-F as in Frank, another F, L-E-R, and I live at 3N464 Vachel Lindsay Street in Fox Mill. I am commenting on action item B, the zoning variance for the PUD for the farmstead, to turn it into, have a guest room permissible under what they have as the addition, like the existing culinary school. I don't want a hotel in my backyard. This could be a bed and breakfast, but the code does not allow a bed and breakfast where the owner of the property does not live or in the property when the people are staying there. Right now, the property is being used as a hotel. It's listed currently on Airbnb. My community, we learned about this change that's being asked for, and I wanted to come and state my opposition to it. I understand the value of having the farmstead, the history of that property. I think the use of the culinary school is very important for our community in general, but to turn it into something where it is allowing for people staying under 30 days, circumventing the rule we have on people staying under 30 days for short-term rentals, and to push this thing through as a guest room. It's 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and then underneath it is a culinary school. And the whole property is what you get when you rent it through Airbnb. And again, this is because I believe the property owner has a desire to sell the property. They're already using it the way they're not supposed to, which is a short-term rental under 30 days. And it's already being used the way that the current property owner would like it to continue to be used. But I believe, based on conversation with people within our community and our Facebook group that we have for Fox Mill, that it's being used right now as an Airbnb, and it's being negotiated to sell right now. And I believe that the reason why it's been pushed to this group to make this modification to the PUD or the PUD is because the buyer of the property is like, I don't want to buy it and not get to use it the way that you're telling me I get to use it. I want to change it so that we can have people stay legally under 30 days. So I think the best thing to do is to not allow the amendment to the PUD, the modification to allow short-term rental. If we are so interested in having short-term rentals at this property, perhaps the best way is to approach amending our code to allow a bed and breakfast where the owner doesn't live inside the property with the people who are staying. But as of right now, the property owner lives in one building, and there's another building, and this property is a couple hundred feet from my home. And so I urge this group tonight, as I mentioned in the previous meeting that I came to last week, that I do not want to have this property become a hotel in my backyard. It is being used today as a hotel, but I don't want it to be legally made that way for the next owner, because I've been here for 5 years. I will be here for many more years, but I don't want a hotel in my backyard. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Have a great rest of your night.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, could I address some of the statements that were made?
Did you sign up? Or
They just were.
wait till the action?
Factual, so I just wanted to correct the record if I may.
Okay, we're going to wait till your action item comes up. All right. Yes, sir?
Should I speak now or later?
What's
Same
sep-
topic.
Same topic? I would say you speak now.
Okay. I filled out the form, I just wasn't sure what I was supposed to
Okay.
do with it. Larry Gallagher, 3N 462 Curling Pond Court. I live 2 properties west of the cooking school. So I'm just on the other side of LaFox Road. And I would basically say that, I spoke at the zoning hearing as well, that I see absolutely no negatives with this property and with this use. We're talking about one room, we're not talking about a hotel. There's certainly other options in Shepherds, if you're familiar with options in Shepherds, such as lodging and rooming, bed and breakfast, that deal with much smaller occupancy. So it's sort of inflammatory to use the word hotel when we're talking about like a couple of pets here. The other side of it is you've got a resident owner that has been a complete asset to our community, and putting in a business is very unique and different. And I think with the charm that we have always had in Campton Hills, we would be beneficial to have more businesses like this, not less. The gentleman that spoke mentioned that he's got young kids and he's afraid about who's gonna be there. And I get that, but, you know, in this day and age, a registered sex offender could buy the property right next door to him, and there's literally nothing he can do about it. We have a swimming pool right up the street as well, and we have no idea who's in and out of there, guests all the time. And I don't know, I'm gonna put forward if we've got a predator that's hanging around looking for kids, he's probably hanging around a swimming pool, not a cooking school. Just my 2 cents. There is one other thing that I'd like to say, totally different zoning thing that came up, if I could. There were 3 items on the agenda last, at the zoning meeting. And one of, it's not on tonight, but I just wanted to sort of lay a seed across, because this one got a lot of discussion and nobody could figure a way out of the box. So I went home and I read most of the zoning ordinance. And this fellow is trying to put in like an accessory building. And his lot is 5 acres, I'm sorry.
5 acres.
And the way it's worded is up to 5 acres. And if it was over 5 acres, he could do what he's trying to do, but he hits the threshold on the square footage for the accessory buildings. There's a consistency issue if you read the zoning ordinances, where sometimes it's up to 5,000 and sometimes it's 5,000 or more. So a simple edit of changing to 5,000 or more would fix the problem for this guy. That's the seed I'd like to plant in his behalf. Okay?
Okay, thank you, sir. Yep, good timing. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Anything to remove from the consent agenda? Yeah?
Yes, I'd like to remove 4A and 4H, please.
Okay. Motion to move the consent agenda with the exception of 4A and 4H.
So moved, Muncy.
Moved by Muncy, second by McKelvey. Roll call.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I went backwards. Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, Muncy, go ahead, 4A.
Thank you, President Winnicke. Just a couple simple clarifications. On the minutes, item 7, the discussion items, 7B, the professional services agreement with Safe Built. I just wanted to make sure that it was noted. I know these are not verbatim minutes, but I think it was important that it was pointed out that Safe Built software is required to access the files, and that during the meeting, they offered that we could continue to have the software for $1,500 per year. And I had requested that to be included in the written agreement if we get that far. Also, 7E on the intersection of McDonald Road, There were a few suggestions that were made by multiple people. One of the ones that did not make the list was to reduce the speed limit on McDonald Road to 35 and enforce it. Those are my only clarifications or corrections for item 4A on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, trustee Muncy. Any discussion? Okay, motion to move 4A
As amended.
as amended.
So moved, Muncy?
Moved by Muncy.
Second.
Second by McKelvey. Roll call.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to 4H. Ed?
Thank you, President Winnicke. 4H is a simple question. What is the definition, or what is exactly a recording secretary? I don't know that we have that anywhere, and just didn't know if we need to develop that or define that somehow.
You want to take that?
I think it would just be the secretary of the, is this the Plan Commission or the ZBA or joint? Okay, Plan Commission, ZBA.
Plan
Just
Commission,
to take
ZBA.
minutes of the proceedings.
That's what, I mean, that's how it reads to me, that's how I would assume, but I didn't know if we needed to clarify that or not. If not, then I'm fine with it as is.
Good. All right, any more discussion on that? Okay.
So moved.
Motion to move 4H. Who was that? Mike? Moved by Millet.
Second.
Second by Williams. Roll call, please.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 5, staff reports. Chief Levand, floor is yours.
Thank you. This will be a quick one.
Okay.
Last week, information was obtained about criminal activity that involved the residents in the village. Due to the significance of the information obtained from the investigation, I requested the assistance of North Central Narcotics for the investigation. This past Friday morning, a successful search warrant was served and conducted on the residents. I want to thank Officer Stervula, as we know, Stavi, Officer Roskins, and Deputy Chief Blinko for their hard work and quick response to the investigation. Also want to thank North Central Narcotics for their quick response and assistance to my request. The investigation's been turned over to North Central Narcotics. It is their investigation. The police department will have no additional comments on the investigation. But I will say this, the police department works very hard to keep the community safe and free of any illegal activity. That includes narcotics and drugs, guns, such things. So the department has zero tolerance for any illegal activity in the village and will quickly, and this was quickly, work to eradicate any illegal activity in the village. So again, a thank you to everyone that was involved. It literally was within 48 hours. It was start to finish, and this is North Central Narcotics investigation.
Well, thanks to all our police officers.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Saturday, September 21st, 9 to 1, the police department will take part in the Safety Seat Saturday. It'll be here at Village Hall in the police department, the front parking lot. Police department will host the child seat safety event in conjunction with IDOT. Stavi is a certified child seat safety technician. She's going to host the event for us, which includes inspections, informations, and free car seats to those who might need car seats. And then just a quick reminder, Fall Fest, Saturday, September 14th. Great food, beverages, entertainment, and a fireworks show at 8:30. Each year, the money they raise is donated to local charities. And that's all I have.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chief. Oh, any questions for Chief Levand? Okay. Good. Moving on, we're on to action items. 6A, motion to approve ordinance 24-07 to allow for a zoning ordinance for placement of a deck in a side yard at 5 North 476 Brown Road.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Burson. Do I have a second? Moved by
Second?
Nick. Discussion? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Good, motion passes. Congratulations. Okay, we'll move on to 6B, motion to approve ordinance 24-8 for zoning variance to amend a PUD special use to allow a guest room in conjunction with previously approved culinary school at 3 North 369 LaFox Road.
So moved. Muncy.
Moved by Muncy, second
Second.
by McKelvey. Okay. Discussion. Is it Leslie? Leslie, right? Yeah, go ahead to the podium.
I just wanted to say, this is one of the problems with social media, but I guess that's what people used to gossip over the back fence before it existed. But to set the facts straight, yes, when I inquired in May about, at the time it was for a bed and breakfast, I now understand for various reasons that wasn't allowed, but there was a way forward this way. And I was asked to stop taking any reservations, which I did. But the listing, yes, is still up there, but if anybody bothered to look, they'd see that you can't actually make a booking through the, I think I did through the end of 2024. Secondly, I do not have a buyer. I wish I had a buyer. I don't have a buyer. The property's not on the market. I think maybe what started the rumor is I also realized after this started, maybe about a month ago, I didn't know I could tap my retirement savings penalty-free at 59.5, which is going to be December 21st. So as soon as I realized I didn't have to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, that became very appealing to me. So honestly, right now, I don't know exactly what the path forward is, but I know, at least partial retirement is in my cards. And that's all I wanted to say to kind of take the hearsay out of it.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. All right, now discussion. Anybody? Trustee Burson?
I am generally pro-business, and I have no problem with what the property owner has proposed at this property in a general way. My concern is that it's being proposed in a very, very, very specific way. So if it were the case that we were talking about whether or not it was a good idea to have people come to Campton Hills and stay in a bed and breakfast and enjoy our community and spend money here and enhance our community, I think that would be a great thing. If we were able to come up with a framework that would allow multiple properties that would be of either historic or otherwise, or any other interest to people coming to our community to experience what Campton Hills has to offer. I think that would be a great thing in terms of a bed and breakfast opportunity. My concern is that we're considering this for a specific property, and it feels to me as if it's a larger conversation and a conversation that there may be other properties that would feel that they should be able to offer similar amenities, but we're proposing to do this only for a very specific property in a very specific way. And I appreciate very much the effort and creativity of our staff and our attorney to try and find a way to meet this need that was expressed by our resident. But I feel that it's a larger issue. And the larger issue of whether we want to allow this type of activity in our community, which I personally would be in favor of, but I would be in favor of it if we were able to find a way to offer it a little bit more broadly. But I don't feel that as a specific exception for a single property, I'm not comfortable.
Okay, any other? Oh, Trustee Muncy?
Thank you, President Winicky. While I understand Trustee Burson's comments, I think we do have a way to look at this as a larger issue. That in our zoning ordinance, we allow bed and breakfasts in residential, on farm, in many zoning districts. Those are available for people to come and ask for that as a special use. On this particular property, is it specific? Yes. Did we issue a specific liquor license for the specific cooking classes that this particular property is holding? Yes, we did. And that's appropriate in many cases to have specific things for specific uses. And that's just an example of one. I don't want to say concern, but the only thing that is a little different with this versus a special use is that as a PUD, as I understand it, and this is kind of a question for our village attorney, that this use would be somewhat in perpetuity, would run with the PUD. I would like to know whether or not it's, whether or not it's possible to put a time limitation on that. So in other words, we would allow this use for 2 years or 18 months or something like that, and then at the end of that term, determine if there was an issue or not, and then potentially come back and reissue or not.
So an amendment to a PUD for a use like this is typically in perpetuity, as you stated. And it runs with the land. Because it becomes part of the property itself, and in a lot of cases, either adds, never really decreases the value, but typically adds to the value of the property as a use, I would be wary of putting a time limitation on it, because it essentially is a property right at that point.
I had a follow-up question. The businesses that benefit from being allowed to conduct gaming activities, for example, they could clearly show that they have a financial interest, a benefit to that, and yet we were able to put a time limit on that and see how that went for a couple of years. Or it was around COVID, so we kind of, it was a year, then it was 2 years, and whatever. But I'm having trouble finding, and again, not an attorney, so I don't know, you can explain it to me. I'm having trouble finding why we would be able to limit something such as the beneficial use of a gaming permit, but not this use, just because it's a PUD.
The difference is because it's the actual use being allowed on the property through a zoning amendment, an amendment to the PUD, a license, and you could place a moratorium on use, on particular uses that were not allowed or currently are allowed. But when you tie the use to a zoning change on the property itself, you're solidifying that into perpetuity. It's recorded with the Kane County Recorder. It stays with the property. A licensed use like gaming, cannabis, I've seen moratoriums on vaping shops to stop the proliferations of some more nuisance uses that, in essence, that's appropriate, but we typically recommend after that, or during that moratorium period, you review whether or not the village would like to continue allowing more uses or completely outlawing them. And then the uses that are still in place are, in essence, grandfathered in until they then wean off. So you can't stop the use at a certain period of time because we don't know when the current owner plans to sell, and you can't say that whether it's in 2 years or 5 years or never that use stops at a certain time. But I do understand trying to think of it from a use perspective or a license perspective, because we do see that. It's because it's tied to the zoning itself. If you were just allowing short-term rentals village-wide in specific zoning districts, or you already had them, and then you were looking to do a study on whether or not more of them should be allowed, or you desire to have more of them, you could put a moratorium on new short-term rental licenses and then have staff report back, and then before the expiration of the moratorium, make a decision as to whether to continue or not. So I've definitely seen that occur before.
But to be clear for the public, there are no
Right, right. It's currently not allowed village-wide. Right.
Okay, Trustee McKelvey.
I think Attorney Carmen just answered my follow-up question as it regards to this. I do think it's important to keep in mind that it's just 2 rooms and 1 bathroom, shared bathroom. So you might see 2 couples come together, I would think, and use both rooms, or you might see, and maybe even attend the cooking class, I assume, and get to stay there, et cetera, in the country. So I don't see this as opening up Pandora's box in any way, because it's specific to this PUD.
There was a comment earlier about this essentially being a bed and breakfast, and just to make it clear, Mr. Brown from staff reviewed reviewed allowing this as a bed and breakfast, which would have required a special use. And the reasons why were because it's not an owner-occupied building and it's not a dwelling. Even though the owner lives on site, she lives in a separate structure, and it's not a dwelling. And a dwelling, rather than a commercial building, which is the way that this is seen, is required for a bed and breakfast. So if you think of it that way, this really is a bed and breakfast, and the special use, or the PUD amendment through the special use process is being allowed to allow a bed and breakfast to operate at that location. You just can't call it a bed and breakfast. You're calling it a guest room.
Because the bed and breakfast requires you to live in the bed and breakfast. This is a building adjacent to where she, I'm sorry, I turned it on and off. She doesn't live in this unit. She lives in the unit that she calls her home, and that's why it also wouldn't be a bed and breakfast.
Trustee Millette.
I think we again are dealing with the sins of the county. This property should never been in the PUD. It was some kind of weird deal to move the one building to the parcel that the then community development director from the county dreamed up. It doesn't have common access to any of the roads that are within Fox Mill, right? It feeds straight out on the Fox. So, but for the fact that it is, and following up on the comments specific to the findings, third finding, second and third findings, sort of saying, oh, it's in a PUD, but it's farm. It would be probably just as problematic to amend the PUD to pull this back out, set it as its own parcel as it should be, and then talk about the zoning related to it, as it is to amend the PUD for this purpose. The trick is, I would prefer it to be a limited special use too. I mean, for the same reason, if it's not a viable one way or the other, you don't want the entitlement to stay. We've had this issue since day one of the village, but I'm not seeing a mechanism where we can do that. If this was re-subdivided by itself, pulled to an entirely separate PUD, would that work?
It's possible. It does appear that the site itself is already have two separate established uses on it through the county. There's a farm site, there is a dwelling site. If it were simply just a special use, we've discussed this internally, if it were a drive-through attached to a specific type of use, like a bank, you can put a condition on that special use that if it no longer operates as a bank, the drive-through doesn't stay with the parcel, so that if you wanted to open up some other sort of business that had a drive-through on it and it wasn't attractive, then the village could say no. And that allows for the property to transfer between owners and the special use to remain. Because it's a PUD, it's seen differently. So you can put conditions on the granting of the PUD, number of nights of rental, spacing between rentals. We've seen that in other communities, usually related to short-term rentals, maximum amount of rentals per year or per month, things like that, maximum amount of guests. So.
Trustee Millette, are you done? Okay. Nick, go ahead.
With the, knowing that we have, restriction on short-term rentals village-wide, I'm just trying to understand what the exception is, what the reason for it is. I mean, I can see in discussion that it would be a great fit, that it fits the property well in a business model. Like, I agree with all of that. But I think what I see would be really, if we're okay with short-term rentals, then to have a bigger discussion village-wide, because I'm just not yet seeing why the exception's being made on this property. but yet village-wide, we restrict VRBO and short-term rental. I'm just not seeing where or why this exception is being made for this property.
Okay. Trustee Williams?
I think my hang-up on this, and it kind of piggybacks off what Mike's saying, is it has nothing to do with the business that's there now, the owner. I've only heard, I mean, I haven't personally been there, but I know people that have, and they're very happy with it, and they're, you know, I think it's been an asset. My problem I have is I don't like handcuffing future boards. I really have a problem with that. I really do. I don't want to have it where it can't be changed in future boards. I mean, and I don't want it to be where my concern is not this owner, not at all, because I mean, she's got a great track record. I've only heard good things. My problem is the 5 owners from now, you know, and that's where I have a problem with it a little bit, because if it was a special use like you were talking about, Ed, at least if something happened, we could yank it back, or somebody could yank it back at some point. But I'm just worried that where it could go. And the impact, I mean, we have one gentleman here that's talking about a house behind him. And it's just, my heart goes out to people in that situation, because I know it's one guy talking, but I mean, I don't know who else is impacted by it. And I don't want it to be the 5th guy and then there's raves there. And I don't know, you know what I mean? It just makes me nervous, that's all, for future. So I don't know. That's my perspective on it. I don't want to limit, but I also don't want to make it something that's permanent, which I think a special use would possibly allow us to change that, right?
If it were strictly a special use, you can put restrictions on it that if ceases to operate, if that use ceases to operate for a particular period of time, then it would expire. And then either initiation or doesn't occur. And that happens a lot of times with new construction of a commercial facility. You don't want another buyer or the developer to flip it to 3 different people, and then 6 years from now, XYZ gets built, and it's not what you previously approved. If that were a special use, you could probably say, if it ceased to operate, then 2-3 owners down the road couldn't pick it up. But it's different with a PUD because you're specifically enumerating and allowing the use on the property.
Okay, everybody got a chance to speak.
There's still more discussion to be had, though, I think.
More discussion?
Trustee Burson had her hand.
Go ahead,
I'll be
Trustee
after her,
Burson.
please.
I just want to make sure that the public understands, because I think that the board members understand that there is a difference between special use and the amendment that's being contemplated here. And so if it were the case that our zoning ordinance allowed this type of usage in any zoning classification, then we could consider even changing the zoning classification and allowing a special use. But unfortunately, we have no zoning classification that allows this usage. Is that correct?
The closest thing would be a bed and breakfast, and I don't even believe that it would be allowed. It's only allowed in certain zoning districts, let me put it that way.
So as I had indicated earlier, I really, and it's not hyperbole, I really applaud both you and Administrator Rooney for trying to find a creative solution, and a solution that that you thought, would be sort of self-contained. But I think we're stumbling on multiple issues here in terms of the special use versus this amendment. Because if it were special use, we can put time limits. We can restrict it to the current owner, things like that, which we can't do with this amendment. For me, it's still a no. But thank you for clarifying that part.
And Mr. Brown did a lot of the legwork on speaking with the applicant, working through what our potential options were, and of course, any property owner has the right to apply and the right to a hearing, and it's certainly up to the board whether or not you agree. So.
Okay, one more comment. Go ahead, Trustee Muncy.
Thank you. So just to be clear, Village Attorney, there's no possibility to, not through this amendment as is proposed to us today, but is there no possibility to have a special use enacted for a PUD?
So the PUD process is approved through a special use. You go through the special use process to either approve or amend a PUD. So that's why there's language in here talking about special use, but the special use for the specific use that's being considered, that's not what we're looking at here. We're using the special use process, like I said, to amend the PUD. We're not.
I know it's not what we're looking at here.
Right.
I'm asking, is it possible to
Right.
vote on or contemplate a special use on a PUD property?
Could you have anything that is changed within the PUD has to be an amendment to the PUD? Right, right. And if this use were allowed on this property only through the special use process, and we weren't talking about a PUD here, then you'd have different considerations as far as timeline, having it not run with the land, et cetera. It's because we're in a PUD. That's the reasoning here.
And the zoning code doesn't.
Right, right. Your zoning code right now only has a bed and breakfast as a special use, but only in particular zoning districts.
Okay, one more comment, trustee Millette.
Two things came to mind. One, we're getting to the point where we don't want to be the cookie cutter village. We never have wanted to be the cookie cutter village. B&B, part of the house that you primarily reside in, makes sense for places where you have single dwellings on single lots. That's not common. Let me rephrase that. That's not uncommon here. Right? We have multiple dwellings on several lots of record here for various reasons. So we want to contemplate what would be nice uses of and make our community attractive. Going to have a long weekend cooking class at a school where you could stay seems super attractive. Some of the event spaces we've been contemplating, with the wedding spaces, barns and stuff, it's another thing where it might be a good way to do that, to attract, incentivize attract. The can of worms here is making this an entitlement because of this existing PUD, and that's part of the issue. If we look at the comments from, and again, this is something the Zoning and Plan Commission voted unanimously for. So they looked at some of these factors, and they're telling us, as our recommending body, we think you should make this exception for this reason, right? That's what we're talking about. The one thing that we keep coming back to, though, is it being a permanent change. So I believe what I alluded to earlier is probably the better way to go, is to just cut this PUD out and do it separately, so then and then it becomes a special use for this new PUD, and then anything that gets entitled is just to this parcel, so we don't have that can of worms to the rest of the Fox Mill PUD. So it could or it couldn't, right? So.
Yeah,
Okay.
if the particular portion of the property were subdivided out, is that what you're saying? You'd have to determine you'd still have the issue of it not being a dwelling and the owner not living in the dwelling. There would still be a consideration as to allowing it on this parcel but not allowing it in other areas of the village. I still think you'd have the same issue.
Well, we've got McKelvey and then Nick, and then we'll go for a vote. Go ahead.
I think Trustee Millette mentioned it. Obviously, it was unanimous at the commission, which I sat through, and there was a lively debate, a positive debate, trying to come up with a solution. And that's kind of the strange part about this. It's a PUD. But can you just help me with the history of this again? Because I think I have it right, but I may not. Initially, it was not approved in the PUD as a cooking school. Later it was. Is that correct?
Right, that was added in '97, I think.
Okay, so that was an amendment to the
original
PUD
PUD.
for the cooking school, which then becomes permanent. So now, at that time, would the a board or somebody does us and say, oh my goodness, we just allowed a cooking school forever. Oh my goodness, that's got 12 people, 20 people attending, and I'm just trying to think out loud, right? Because that's permanent. That cooking school stays with it. Well, now we're asking the 2 rooms above the cooking school with a shared bathroom, basically, and for people to stay in there. So, I mean, I'm not as, I hear the argument, and I think it's a fair question, but when you think about when the cooking school was allowed, forever, staying with the land, that certainly involved more cars, more people attending, potentially more traffic in and out on the Fox. I don't see where this is a risk at all. I just don't think it's that big of a lift. And I think that's where, at least when I heard the dialogue at the zoning commission, I think that's where they landed. So anyways, just a comment.
Okay, Nick, you were next, and then we're going to go for a vote.
Okay, very good,
Yeah.
thank you. Trustee Millette, what you said about the properties in Campton Hills that have multiple buildings on them, this could be a great use in a way for those property owners to use. I really like that idea if we could apply it to the whole village, to all of those properties. I would be super supportive of doing something like that as, you know, a discussion item, as an amendment to our entire zoning code, where properties like this could all have the opportunity to do something, you know, with short-term rentals on these types of properties. But again, just like this one individual, I'm just still not seeing why the exception is being made. But certainly, it seems like a really, you know, relevant thing to discuss in the future for all of those properties.
Okay, call the question. Roll call.
Trustee Muncy,
Aye.
Trustee McElvey,
Aye.
Trustee Boatner,
Nay.
Trustee Burson,
Nay.
Trustee Millette,
Pass.
Trustee Williams,
Nay.
Trustee Millette,
I'll go aye.
President Wodnicki,
Yes. It passed. Congratulations. Now you can breathe. All right, thank you. Good discussion. All right, we're moving on to 6C, motion to approve ordinance 24-18, ratifying the approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Kane County, Illinois for police records management system and services.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Burson, second.
Second, Muncy.
Second by Muncy. Discussion?
This is essentially a ratification of a prior agreement that was entered into by the village between the village and the county back in 2022. The services have not been provided yet because there was some delay in the implementation of the services, and there's been no cost, I believe, to the village either that's been outlaid. So, although I do believe it was budgeted in anticipation of the costs.
Yes.
It just has not been paid yet. So, to formalize things, we wanted to make sure that it was approved by the board.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson,
Aye.
Trustee Muncy,
Aye.
Trustee Boatner,
Aye.
Trustee McElvey,
Aye.
Trustee Millette,
Aye.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. 6D, motion to approve Resolution 24-22, a resolution regarding opposition to a development in the city of St. Charles, Illinois, by the village of Campton Hills, Illinois.
So moved, Muncy.
Moved by
Second.
Muncy and second by Trustee Burson. And Tracy, our clerk, is going to read a resolution that was drawn by our attorney, Carmen, and she'll try to make it as brief as she can, right?
That's a page and a half. I don't know how brief
That's
we can go.
why. Yeah.
The village president and board of trustees of the Village of Campton Hills strongly urge the corporate authorities of the city of St. Charles, Illinois, to reject the current proposal made by Pulte Home Company LLC to develop 970 acres of open space and farmland into a high-density metropolis adjacent to the precious farmland and open space that adjoins the village, starkly affecting the semi-rural nature of the surrounding area. The Village of Campton Hills was formed to preserve the semi-rural way of life and agricultural traditions of its residents and those of the surrounding communities, which is in direct contradiction to large-scale suburban high-density development. And the City of St. Charles, Illinois, is currently considering the development of 970 acres of unincorporated land in Campton and Blackberry Townships around the LaFox area, generally bound by Illinois Route 38 on the north, Brundage Road on the east, Kesslinger Road on the south, and Harley Road on the west, which would be performed by Pulte Home Company, and the proposed development would include over 2,000 housing units, including high-density multifamily housing units that would swallow the historical LaFox downtown area, drastically changing its nature as a preserved rural town, and the proposed development will bring with it several adverse effects, including environmental impacts, increased traffic congestion, and air pollution to these sensitive areas, and the proposed development will cause serious impacts to natural resources, aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems in the area, and Campton Township and Kane County have identified several rare species of native plants within the property containing the proposed development and its surrounding properties, and the vibrant and ecological sensitive Mill Creek runs through the property. And the protected Blandings turtle has been observed at the property, as well as a rare freshwater mussel species occurring in Mill Creek. And the quality of surface water and subsurface water will also be affected by the proposed development, including increased levels of phosphate, sodium chloride, and BTEX that will adversely affect water resources and health of the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. And the village, the city, our neighboring communities, and the unincorporated areas of Kane County remain unique and very desirable places to live due to the choices that our residents have to live in a more urban area if they desire, or to live in a semi-rural farm area as well. The construction of the proposed development in this area will place a significant burden on the residents of the village, the city, and other residents of Kane County through increased taxes to support the massive influx of housing units and residents, school crowding issues, and costs to maintain the public roadways and infrastructure that were not designed to handle the significantly higher uses that the proposed development would bring to the area. The village and its residents understand that responsible development is important to the village and its surrounding areas, including the city, and the village is discouraged that the proposed development ignores the ideas that are held by so many that reside in the area adjacent to it and beyond. And because of these reasons and many more that will become apparent through the city's review process of the proposed development, the village is strongly opposed to the proposed development in its current form.
Perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I think there's more than just myself attending tomorrow evening. Tom's going to be there. Ed's going to be there. Jim? Yeah, and I will be there, and I will be making copies and handing this out to the Plan Commission, St. Charles, City of St. Charles Plan Commission members tomorrow. And, yeah, and I'll read it if we have time. Yeah. All right, any other?
Barb, just,
Yeah, go ahead.
thank you. Yeah, just a quick comment, because Chairman Johnson and the zoning commission asked me to shout loud and clear, at least from their perspective as well. Their strong echo and support for this, obviously, so I just wanted to make sure I got that on the record.
Yeah, he's been working hard on, on fighting this development. Any other comments then? Okay. Yeah, roll call.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to discussion item 7A, intergovernmental agreement with Campton Township Highway District. And Mike, or do you want Mike to take this?
I can
Just a
Carmen,
quick
go
overview.
ahead.
Sure.
Okay.
We've been tasked with reviewing the current agreement and making some revisions after some meetings with a couple of our trustees. Prepared that, sent it over to the township about a week and a half ago or so. Still waiting on comments, so should have it for review and consideration at an upcoming meeting.
Good. Okay. Do you want me to combine 7B and C? Closure of McDonald and then closure of Connor?
Well, they're
Very different.
very different.
Okay, so we'll go to 7B, closure of McDonald Road west of Route 47.
And this, I'm seeking just the direction, if we want to move this forward, you could take this step to close it, but it could be 3 months or it could be 6 months before we do the coordination with KDOT and IDOT to affect that change. So it'd be your desire to do it, and we're talking about the west side near the tower, so there's 3 residents there, one of which we know wants it to happen. You heard from the deputy fire chief from Pingree Grove last week, and yes, it would make them change. I don't think it's 3 minutes. It's probably a minute longer maybe for them to go down and turn and go up Burlington to get to those 2 residents. It's not going to make a life and death decision, but it will cut down on some of that cross traffic that is very dangerous, crossing 2 lanes of traffic at a very high speed and limited visibility, making that, whether it's a left or right turn or cutting across two lanes of traffic that are going between 50 and undetermined speeds if they're speeding. So that's why we're recommending staff-wise to take that step on McDonald Road, to be clear. Right, Chief, is there anything else to add?
Yeah, just real quickly, we had another, on the 24th of August, another 2-vehicle accident with injuries at the intersection. So it's getting pretty routine.
Trustee Burson?
I happen to live just north of this area, and I don't welcome more traffic regulation. I moved out here in part for, broad roads, long views, relative lack of traffic regulation. However, it was actually harder to turn onto McDonald off of Kendall tonight than it was to turn off of Dittman onto Burlington, right? The Burlington, big county road, right? And so the amount of traffic that's developed on McDonald in the last year is really, it's really extreme. And so I don't see any problem with closing McDonald west of 47, but more to the point, as it regards the Pingree Grove Fire Department, who I have a great deal of respect for, having rescued me at one time. I don't see why these are mutually exclusive. Why can we not have a road that is closed from Burlington east to 47 to anything but local traffic, and is do not enter going west from 47 except to authority vehicles? I see no reason why a fire truck can't continue to drive west through a do not enter sign when, especially if we exclude it in that way. So to Administrator Rooney's point, no, I don't think it's I don't think it's an inconvenience in particular to go down to the roundabout at Burlington. But even if the Pingree Grove Fire Department feels, and I understand why they do, because when your house is burning down, every second matters, right? But can they not just continue to go west, even though we've closed it to non-governmental traffic? I mean, we've seen these markings in other places. I'm not sure why we can't have a similar marking here. And then the other thing is, it's beyond the scope of our discussion now, but Trustee Muncy brought it up earlier, and there are other issues related to regulating this intersection beyond this particular matter. So the traffic turning off of Route 47 onto McDonald, which is not a county road, which is our road that we're paying for, is an issue outside of the safety concerns that we obviously all have. We've discussed also the possibility of a stop sign that seems that it is, if it may be warranted, at Kendall and 47. due to the angle of the approach to the roads. So I think we're going to find that overall, this is that solving the problem at 47 and McDonald it's a package deal. You know, so we can agree to move this matter forward, and I think we should. But I think we're going to find that there's 2 or 3 or 4 other things that we need to do in conjunction with it in order to make it work. And in particular, because we have to make it work on our own without explicit cooperation from IDOT for the time being, until the redevelopment of the Route 47 corridor.
Okay, Trustee Muncy, go ahead.
Thank you, President Winicky. I agree with Trustee Burson in that the closure of McDonald West of Route 47, I think we should make a proposal or a proposed design or a proposed idea and review that with Pingree Grove and see if we can get some consensus. They had suggested something similar to what Trustee Burson is saying, where you would close the road visually, but there would still be something where a fire truck could get through. It wouldn't be clear that that's open for traffic. Now, it would have to be somewhat strict because we've all seen people ignore the tollway authority only vehicles and take the U-turns on the tollway. It has to be a little better than that. Not that that's bad, but it's a little more effective than that. But I would like to work with them, continue to do that. However, the other suggestions that were made by Trustee Burson, I believe Boatner, several people, including myself, about other aspects, I think the easiest one, again, is the speed limit. We did it on Old Burlington. I think we had to do a traffic study for a week or two, something like that, and then justify the speed limit to be dropped. We could do that and then enforce it from Corin to 47, dropping that to 35 or whatever is justified. I thought 35 might be good. And the reason I thought that's exactly what Trustee Burson was alluding to tonight. We want people's GPSs to steer them to other roads, to county roads that are designed for this type of high-speed, high-volume traffic. We want them off our little country road. And if the speed and then the enforcement, gets around, verbally and technologically, your GPS is going to tell you, go to one of the other roads. That's not the one you should pick. We want to reduce that as a cut-through. And I think the speed limit is one that should have been in the discussion items. And then following that, maybe more traffic studies for stop signs at some of the other intersections or whatever else to take a coordinated approach.
So I'm completely in favor of reducing the speed there. You're going to have an easier opportunity to do that just for conversation purposes. Let's say on McDonald Road from the Kendall Road area going to 47. Let's say if you drop that from 45 to 35, the reason being, and we even as a police department learn this more and more every day with Elgin, if you look at the GIS maps now, McDonald Road, the intersection of Coron, that is Elgin's. If you go west on McDonald Road from Coron, that is Elgin's. You continue to go west, literally we take over a short distance before Dittman. The intersection of McDonald and Dittman is unincorporated Kane County Sheriff. They continue west prior to the curve, and then we take over again. I'm not lying. Then we take over again, like in the Briarwood area, and continue across 47. So, like, if you can get other jurisdictions to go with it, it's complicated, but like every day this changes for us on GIS maps. I mean, it is crazy. Most of it is to do with Elgin up in that area. But a big chunk of that is Elgin's roadway going west, almost till you get to Dittman Road, a little bit east of there. We take over intersection, unincorporated west of there, and then we take over again once you come out of the curve by Briarwood and go west.
You can tell by the condition of the road, too.
100%,
Ours is a road that has
absolutely.
not been repaved recently, and Elgin's is repaved.
It's always about
And so
roads.
is Kane County. So the section that is owned by the village is the one you could affect, and that's, as he
Yeah, so you get
described.
the south side of McDonald from Crawford to Dittman.
So now remember, I'm speaking about roadways. Houses and properties there, as confusing it is too, literally goes Campton Hills, the property next door, Kane County Sheriff, property next door. I mean, it is crazy. I'm speaking of the roadway, so I just think we'd have a much easier, and it's a good stretch to do it, if we're able, east of Kendall Road, like Briarwood area going west, to drop that 45 to 35. I think that would be a huge help. I don't know how successful we'll be in anyone else's. Maybe they go along with it and will agree with it, but I know for a section of it, we could do it. It is our roadway.
Nick, go ahead.
Thank you. Chief, you had mentioned at one point that a lot of these accidents are left-hand turns, and a lot of the stuff that we're implementing is slowing down traffic and cutting off the road, you know, across 47. How much of this is actually attributed to people blowing right through the stop sign or going across 47? Is there really that much traffic that goes across? And I'm not opposed to any of this. I want to hone in on what's actually going on. Are people typically stopping and then making turns, and that causes the accidents?
Yeah, it's taken a slight shift over like the last year here. So I pulled the accidents for the last 5 years. And roughly about let's say the 4 years prior to this, about 65% of those accidents were due to people going westbound McDonald, crossing over and continuing. So it has shifted slightly. Now, we're like the accident we had on the 24th is people now coming to the stop sign, stopping, like omitting, you know, when we speak to them in the investigation, I stopped, I looked, I thought traffic on 47 had the right of way. They thought like they were gonna stop too, like it's a stop for 47 and McDonald Road, a four-way stop. We have signs there that say cross traffic does not stop. It's a state route. So I understand if you're not familiar with the area, which sadly has happened. We had an elderly lady involved in an accident. She was from Addison. She said she was following her GPS, didn't realize that 47 had the right of way, didn't have to stop, thought they did, and pulled out in front of them. So the trend has changed where it tends to be now more vehicles that are making turns there after coming to a stop. But irrelevant, whatever we come up here, if you said there was only 10 accidents there a year, we're slightly above that, quite a bit actually, almost double. If there was 10 accidents there and whatever measures we put into place, saved 1, 2 lives, prevented 1, 2 accidents, I mean, it's well worth it, but the trend has shifted just a little bit on why. But the continuous thing is, it used to be people would go right through the stop sign. 50 miles an hour like it didn't exist, go across the intersection. That has changed. Now everyone is stopping and assuming that 47 has a stop also, and then pulling out in front of the traffic.
Okay, Trustee Williams, you've been waiting.
I think we shouldn't wait, whatever we do. I don't care if it's, we talked to the people at Campton Township, right? And they said they would do something pretty quickly. So I look at it as a multi-level thing. I would like to look at, maybe looking at closing the road. I'm not sure if I'm for it or not, but at this point, there's got to be a way. And a lot of it is, I think, kids, they're looking at their GPS. They just moved to the neighborhood that's over off, it would be one of my kids. My kids are all older now, but it would just be one of those things where I just don't think they're used to it. They're used to hitting the stop signs, hitting the stop sign. They don't even know they're at 47. That's what I think is probably happening. So anything we can do, like you were talking about rumble strips maybe, or I think it was Campton Township guy. I think we need to get on this because we're going to have a death here pretty soon, and it's going to be on our watch because it's our intersection. I mean, that's the part that bothers me the most.
I agree 100%. I've had this discussion for like the last couple of years, even prior to this, both with Campton Township and KDOT, who that's not their road, but offered to assist on it. Rumble strips, fairly inexpensive to do, easy to do, can be done quickly. Lowering the speed limit, that's, another good step. I believe there's steps we can do right away. Is it going to be like the answer to it all? No, but we can keep looking at other options that are out there as it continues to go, and maybe that does help. Even if it's one accident, maybe those things do help.
Yeah, and closure was just the way to get us to talk about all the options, because you're really trying to do is take this off Waze and every Google map as a thoroughfare from west to east. You didn't used to have much west of 47. Now you do, and it's become an alternate east-west route. Stop sign, reducing the speed limit, rumble strips, those will all affect some change. But the stop sign of not being able to go through McDonald at all will force people to go up to that traffic circle
And then why would they take a turn onto 47 to turn onto McDonald? They'll just stay on Burlington, hopefully, and push the traffic to where it's more safe and the road is constructed for traffic. McDonald, as the chief has said, is not in the village limits constructed as a thoroughfare to be east and west and an arterial. It's become an arterial, and it wasn't designed or built for that. Stop sign's going to end it if that's what your desire is, to stop it as a cut-through. That's the only way it's truly going to stop on the Waze map. 35, yes, but if the map systems track people are not going 35, they're not going to change it, folks. It's a policy decision for you all to make, though. I put it here to get discussion and move it forward, because we won't put a stop sign in anytime fast with KDOT and IDOT coordination. You may not choose to do that, but you could do the other things right away. Speed limit, rumble strips. We can make those next board meeting, you direct those to happen.
Just for the record, when you've said stop sign, every time I believe you mean do not enter or road closed.
Yes.
Okay, trustee McKelvey?
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
think the administrator just said it. I think there's consensus here. Put it on the agenda for the next meeting for an action item. Give us the potpourri of what we need to do, and we'll vote on it.
And
And you can vote on the à la carte menu of rumble strips gets all votes. Putting a road closed westbound may not, but the speed limit and the rumble strips will probably pass.
Mike, go ahead.
I was going to bring up the rumble strips idea too, because that was brought up by Ray from the township. Excuse me. But what we might want to do is Trustee Burson's experience there, we might want to do a stop sign warrant now at Kendall and McDonald while the traffic's on McDonald, because if there's not enough gaps forming naturally on McDonald for Kendall traffic to be released, that is one of the reasons we could warrant a stop sign at that intersection, even though it's a T intersection. But if we do any of the other things that divert cars from it, before we do that, then it probably wouldn't happen. So if we wanted to look at possibles to do a stop sign warrant initially at that intersection, get the counts now. And then the second thing is that would also go towards a speed study that we need, because we're not home rules. That's still the reason why? Yeah. You can't be willy-nilly if you're not home rule. And then, yeah, the rumble strips can be done anytime. We talked about, because church is the only thing really out there, at that point that's going to be, potentially bothered by them. But there's lots of places where you have the double sets of rumble strips coming up to a stop sign, like, in rural areas for that exact reason, is to wake somebody up, get your attention to stop. Yeah, you can do it before you get to church. And then the long term is to work with IDOT to improve the intersection. I think we all know that, and there's other ways to go about that. We can push a political discussion on intersection safety with IDOT and get somebody to Kitechers, is this Kitechers? I can't remember if we are somewhere on there, to talk about that and that kind of thing, and see if we can do a better job, because Trustee Burson leaned over earlier to ask, we could have a southbound to westbound right only, which would be okay for Pingree Grove. It wouldn't allow the cross traffic, but the pork chop really needs to extend into IDOT's right-of-way to be effective, to where it is, more of a slip ramp type of thing, where people aren't going to want to try to make a U-turn, right turn to make a left there. They're just going to not make a left at all, and then the people would be prohibited from crossing at all. So you'd still have a right turn. You still have an eastbound to northbound right, or sorry, westbound to northbound right turn issue, with but you have a slightly better. Sight distance isn't that terrible that way, even though it's an angle, but there's nothing blocking your view.
But that's a long-term and not free. I'm looking, because we don't have a lot of funding for our current roads. I didn't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to the perfect solution that IDOT would accept on that pork chop. Closing the road on a section of road that we have jurisdiction on, they can't stop us or direct us to spend tens of thousands of dollars. So that's why I didn't go the perfect engineering solution to stop and let the firemen have their convenience and their speed. That's why it was that way. But we'll put all this on as an action item if that's the direction, the consensus. And then you can pick and choose which one you want to go with first. And in that meantime, I would ask the HR Green engineer to give us the possible cost of a traffic study that we would need as a non-home rule community to reduce the speed and/or put a stop sign at any of the other intersections. And we'll get that price included for the action item if you choose it. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Sure does.
All right.
Okay, one more comment. You want to finish off, Janet? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to 7C, closure of Connor Road at Route 47.
That road is, has one owner, Swanson. He doesn't wish us to close it for a variety of reasons. Mainly, he doesn't want the horse trailer neighbors to think he's the one that complained and got us to close it. And he's just like, I was never in favor of annexing the village. My father did it. And so I don't need a change, and I don't need to be blamed, you know, for closing it at 47. I get what you're saying, because I'm the only one that once or twice a year a farm implement might go to the two row crops on either side of it between his house and 47. There's no reason for anybody to go down there except convenience of going southbound on 47, because if they're going northbound, they usually head up to Plato to that traffic circle and make the turn to go that way. And that's what I think the chief's experience is, and that's what he says the neighbors do. Some of them, instead of wanting to cut through and get down to, you know, Burlington and go on to the safer place to enter the southbound, it's just saves them a few minutes to cut through at Connor, and they might go down to McDonald and do the same thing that's not very safe that we've already spoken of. So it's really the cost of that road, too. That road was paved. It wasn't really paved. It was chip sealed over gravel, and it's about 1/4 of an inch thick of chip sealant on most of that. And it's deteriorated, so we're going to have to do something with that road. And I would propose making it minimum maintenance up to 47 from past his driveway, and we just resurface chip seal up to his driveway and call it a day, and it's minimum maintenance and closed at 47, because then we could have a dust gravel road past his driveway for the farm implements to get there. To totally close that road off and abandon it just to his driveway, probably be pretty extreme and punishing to him, because then he wouldn't get snow plowing, he wouldn't get any kind of surface that his family and his, you know, residents. I think he's going to have one new residence that he's building in unincorporated Kane County, and he has no desire to annex that into the village at all. But on the condition of Kane County approving it, he has to destroy the original farmstead that is there on the right side of the road. So it's very clear it's him, and if he rents out that property or another member of his family lives there, there'd be 2 residents and then 0 people on the row crops, because they don't generally enter their heavy machinery off of Connors. They enter it from another direction where they can get in and out with the large machinery, he said. So it really wouldn't inconvenience them to close it as minimum maintenance past his house, although he is not asking for it and really doesn't desire it for, you know, this is an action I'm recommending because it's as unsafe or worse than McDonald if you go there.
Trustee Williams.
I just drove that. I don't know, I was up there, I thought, hey, I'm gonna go see this road, famous road, and it's not in great shape, because it is, it's bad. But if I think what we're gonna do at McDonald, to me, it's gotta be closed. I mean, after looking at it, it's in bad shape. It's another turnoff that a GPS can take a kid to. I'm always thinking of the teenagers, the new drivers. That's what scares me the most. And I just think it's an automatic. I don't see why it's even an issue. I would close it right now if I could, because it's pretty much closed.
You're talking about Connor.
Yeah, it's bad. That road is bad news. So, and I don't see you
It's
guys,
spelled differently at 47.
Yeah.
And then down there, so.
and I
we
don't
don't
think
even
we're
have
gonna
the
be
signs
posting
right.
police on that road for any purpose.
Yeah, I said that, I know.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer, I think, but.
Janet and then Ed, go ahead.
Well, I
Last
agree with
comments.
Tom. It's not an issue. The road needs to be closed. When I first moved to the area, Google actually used to route me that way. And I took the road a couple of times, like maybe twice. and never again, because we can't actually effectively maintain that road for one resident. It's a half mile. And I actually, one of my questions is, why would we maintain the right-of-way west of that farm? You would think that the property owner would encourage us to eliminate the right-of-way and return the property to them.
Well-
And also, please let me finish, if we maintain the right-of-way, then don't we leave the door open in a future boundary annexation situation that a neighbor to the north of us really wants that road to be open? Wouldn't it be better if it was just closed now while it can be closed, rather than wait to ask for somebody to keep it open later? And then this came up in my mind in the McDonald conversation, but it certainly applies at Connors. The regional strategic artery for the area is Plato Road. It is not McDonald, it is not Connors, it is not any other east-west road in the area. It is Plato Road. That is where traffic is supposed to cross 47 in Plato Township. So that's where the traffic should be being directed. And if we push it north, it's gonna go to Connors, right? And so we need to push it north all the way back at Dittman, all the way back at Coron. We have to push it up to Plato Road because that's where the county, and it's not our decision, that's where the county and the state decided that the traffic is supposed to go. Drivers have decided that it makes a lot of sense to take the clear-cut route that was made across the quarry through Stearns, right? Straight through to McDonald. I mean, as a driver, it's the completely logical thing to do. But anyways, we're talking about Connors. And so if we act on McDonald, people will go up to Connors. They just will. Some will. And so besides the fact that Connors is unmaintainable, has only one resident on it, has a half a mile of road that makes no sense for us to be trying to maintain anymore, is also a hazard. And it's actually substantially more hazardous than McDonald to try and turn off of because of the hill. So there's no case for keeping Connors open that I can see.
Mark, you want to respond?
Yeah, open at 47, that's very clear. The reason, both the row crops that Mr. Swanson owns on north and south of Connors it's in the village. So you don't have to worry about a different neighbor from the west or the north unless he petitions to de-annex and you allow it as a board. So you really, at some point, not in the near term, but your scattered parcels of 50, 150 size acreage that remain out here, at some point, as they get developed, there's going to be so few of those small parcels for somebody that farms as a business and a real entity with large million-dollar equipment. It's going to come west or come east to farm those. So at some point, I think those could turn into what's around Mr. Swanson is horse farms. For, one house, 4 acres, 5, 10 acres. And that's what's in that kind of general area. So if it was converted from row crop to something, you kind of want that right away to still control what development does or doesn't occur off it. I mean, by making it a minimum maintenance gravel road past his driveway is what we're kind of considering, so that he does still have access to his row crop entry of those fields. You could flip it and turn it all over to, because he owns both sides of the road, he'd be the ownership if you offered it for free. Like in the cities, sometimes we close alleys and offer it to both sides of the alley, get it. There's no rule, you could sell it as well, you don't have to give it. But what we really want to do is get permission to directly close it at 47, and that other piece, I think you should debate. But I'd like to list it as closing it just because of the safety factor and what we're discussing.
Quickly, and then we'll wind it up here.
Does Mr. Swanson own the woodlot at 47 and Connors?
That's the only parcel that he doesn't own. And that is not being developed because there was condition that there was supposed to be a stormwater detention kind of pond built when that was further developed years ago. And because they didn't put in the pond after they built the few homes, there's an idea that the village wouldn't let them develop that wood lot for other homes because they didn't keep their bargain in the past. That's according to Mr. Swanson's history of the property.
Thank you. And do you think that over time, Mr. Swanson has any reasonable hope of remaining in an unincorporated state?
His new home is more down toward the intersection. He has no desire to
That's not the
enter
question.
the village.
Does he have any reasonable hope of remaining unincorporated in the future?
Unless you force annexed him, he'd stay unincorporated.
Point of order, I think I had next, we're getting off topic here.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I would hope that staff, I think we're all in agreement, it sounds like we're all in agreement that it would be a good idea to propose as an action item next time, close off Connors Road and a minimum to no maintenance on sections of that road is the short-term solution. There may be longer-term solutions that are good, that we can consider, but we're not going to get them done as quickly as we could get this done. So let's look at this first. Has that as an action item. We can have more discussion then, but I think we're good for now.
It's a discussion, yeah. Okay, we're going to move forward. Discussion items, 7D, fee schedule of permits. I think this is Nick, maybe? Is this your baby here?
It's not, but I definitely would like to speak on it.
Would you want to speak?
I think the fee schedule of permits right now is referring to Safe Build and, you know, re-looking at our permit fees so that it all makes sense when we're working with Safe Build. I think that's why that's on here. But it is a very natural progression, and I would like to talk to the board about at this time, while we're looking at the fee schedule, I would like to, at the same time, of course, with the board's support, before I even get started doing it, work with Mark while he is going through this and look at some places where we can safely eliminate some permitting for home maintenance items, some areas that we could all agree are not safety concerns for the residents. Examples, changing doors, windows. In the past, when I've talked about this, there were driveways, resurfacing driveways, but some very good points were made in those previous discussions about, you know, you let folks do that, next thing you know, it's another foot larger on one side, and all of a sudden we're in setbacks, and that makes a ton of sense. But I still do believe that a big part of living out here, when you move into Campton Hills, you know, the rural part of the semi-rural is having our sanctuary, having that little bit of privacy, and the part of rural, you can work on your home. You know, on the weekend, you can run to the hardware store and you can do a little remodeling. You can swap out a door without worrying about running to the village for a permit. There's lots of things in the home that should require a permit and should always continue to require permits. Examples, upgrading your electrical service, adding a new bathroom to your home, additions, new decks. all of these things should stay exactly the same, but I think that we can find a lot of opportunity in our building permit system to really give back to the residents and allow them to do what they're doing already without, whether they know it or not, breaking the rules in the village. And outside of that, the fee schedule, you know, of course, there's definitely gonna need to be some data that we need to look at. What is our overhead? You know, what do we need out of that 20%? You know, there has to be some metrics that we look at to determine what those fees are. And I think that I could be quite helpful, Mark, because I put a lot of that together in the past.
Yeah, I've spoken to Trustee Boatner, and would like to ask the board's consent to work with staff to look at all the permits and the ones that aren't life safety for consideration, especially in light of the next item on the agenda, as you've stated. And I think because of that work that needs to be done, of what's going to be still permitted and what the fees are going to be, before we consider the Safe Built contract, I also would be remiss if we didn't further study what BNF Technical Services might do if we stay versus leave, as well as what we can, you know, get with them. So I'd like to have more time to work, with the trustee to look at some of those permits, what's going to stay as a permit, what the fee's going to be, and then also work with BNF and safety consultants that we currently use for plan review. And because Safe Built is really, really good when you're Hampshire or Pingree Grove, when you're turning 100, 200 units a year of new construction. Norton Lake's got 8 more lots to be developed, and they are scheduled for this fall and winter. So we're not going to be in that volume. So it may make sense to see what better deal I can get out of BNF before we take that step, and the permit fees, what they're going to be and which ones we're going to keep. So more study, and I'll meet with Trustee Boatner and staff about that list this Thursday, if there's no objection to anybody.
Okay, you covered E as well, or? Yeah, right? Yes. For Safe Built, okay. Let's see. 8 additional items from president, trustees, or attorney. I just want to announce that we're canceling the September 17th meeting due to vacations. We'll have a shortage on the board, and so we'll just go into October then.
Say that again, the date, I'm sorry.
Oh, September 17th. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Is there anyone who's unable to be here on the board?
Yes. Yeah, well, yeah,
Staff-wise.
staff-wise. Mm-hmm.
And we're unable to have a meeting? I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
We've skipped meetings for 3 months in a row now.
We're going to be short-staffed. That's all there is to it. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a good rationale for not having the meeting, but okay.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Motion to move into closed session for the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by a public body.
So moved, Muncy.
Moved by Muncy. Second by McKelvey. Roll call.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey? Aye. Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millet? I'm sorry, Trustee Williams?
Aye. Or, yeah, yes, aye. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody, I think they're leaving. I think they know Carmen, and I think they're leaving. They're glad to go. I think so. They're all leaving, yeah.
If there's no staff to put a package together, there's no meeting to be had.
Well, I think so. Everybody's leaving. Hurry to get out of here.
it's under 10, but it's more than 5. I want to make sure it's
She just can't stand it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. East of Denton's a little sketchy. Maybe some stuff. So, that's where they put the rumble strips. This is, and get the rumble strips.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. We're gonna turn it over. Yeah.
Slow traffic. I know, but I'm scared. We'll cut them in.
I could see if it was near the road, maybe, or near the school. Maybe we donate it to the school. Oh, yeah. No. I'm glad. You're welcome. Yeah.
I was
Good.
just saying, I was gonna say, you could have put special condition that any future owner would have to live on site, and that might have gone into that.
Yeah. Sounds like you're pretty settled though, and yeah.
And,
It's a beautiful spot. I think it's a perfect spot for that. That's okay. Yeah, but no, I do.
yeah, I've been working hard to keep it that way.
Yeah, yeah, good. All right, Leslie, I'll stop in one day.
And it's even worse coming the other way. A couple weeks ago, we don't usually come from west. We came from west. And there is no safe move.
I think so. Oh, since you got your phone.
Because I gotta make sure who you guys are not allowed to get to, so.
I don't think so. Yeah. Well, look, you can look at it.
Everybody took off, better go find the lawyer, closed session right
That's what we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're doing. No, he knows. He went to the bathroom. Yeah.
You went to closed session Oh, Carmen.
We'll wait for Carmen.
We can go about it.
Yeah?
He'll write it up.
Okay. All right. You guys? All
I
right.
think if the clerk has to note who's here.
We're in closed session. Roll call, please. You want a cupcake? It's kind of an ice cream from Dairy Queen.
Trustee Boatner? Trustee Boatner?
5-year-old mint.
Janet?
Here.
Trustee Burson?
Here. Okay.
Trustee McElvey?
Here.
Trustee Millet?
I'm present.
Trustee Muncy? Trustee Williams?
Here.
President Wodnicki?
Present.
And Attorney Forte and Commissioner Rubin.
And Madam Clerk, we're here tonight for Lot 115 in the Norton Lake development. It is set to revert by January 1st of 2025 to the Village of Campton Hills. Currently, the HOA has a path on it, and they maintain it through the Shodine developer. It is of no use to the village. It's kind of locked with backyards on either side, and it doesn't connect to anything. It would serve no purpose except for the village to add it to its liability policy for slip and fall type activity, and we'd have to mow it. I see us having no reason to keep it, and like for the attorney to draft an agreement, whether it's with $1 or a $10 contract to the HOA. And they have expressed an interest to take it over, at least the president of the HOA, such as it is currently established.
And how big is the parcel, Mark?
Uh,
Acre? or
It's
can-
less than an acre.
Less than an acre?
Yes.
So it's currently owned by the village, correct? And it's just the maintenance is going to
Come to the
into
village,
Right,
yeah.
under the PUD.
Under the PUD.
It's, where is this? It's like less than an acre, I believe.
Yeah, it is less than an acre.
It's on North Lake and Foxborough.
And it's currently just open space that drains and then sheets to the pond.
Which is
It's
good.
not the parcel up
Yeah.
on 64 next to the school, which I was told by a previous president that that was the lot that was coming to us. And then I'd be doing the same meeting, just saying, can we give that to the
the
school
school,
district?
yeah.
But the school district got 3 lots, 108, 109, 112, back at the